Well, hello, boys and girls. Nice to see you again today. Today's story is about Ruth, Oprah, and Naomi. Oprah? No, no, not Oprah. Orpah. Ruth, Orpah, and Naomi. Enjoy. Hey kids, and welcome to StoryTime. I'm really glad that you're here today. Today, well, it might not seem very different to you, but this is really different for me because I'm telling a story that's kind of written like a story in the Bible. The Bible does a lot of information. It tells lots of things that are like a story, but the story of Ruth is a whole book. It's just the story of Ruth. And it kind of gives some nice story details. I've been excited about this one. It doesn't start off well, though. It starts off with Naomi, who was living in Bethlehem and with her husband and two sons. And, well, there was a famine, and there just wasn't enough food to eat. Sometimes we think we have problems, but they just simply didn't have enough food to eat. So they just had to pack their stuff up and go to Moab, where they'd heard that there was more food. So they went from Bethlehem to Moab, which you and I could drive in a day, no problem. Go home all on the same day. But when you're walking it, it's quite a long way. And when they got there, Elimelech, Naomi's husband, he died. Now, something I've got to tell you about Bible times. And you may not like this. I'm not telling you so that you'll like it. I'm just kind of telling you how the culture was, how people lived back then. You see, women didn't go and get jobs. And so they got to eat and have money because their husbands had food and had money. So quite often this worked for a lot of people, but it really didn't work when Mr. Husband died. Because, well, what are you going to do? And this story is a lot about what women do when they don't have somebody going to work for them and providing for them. So Naomi's husband died in Moab, so she's away from her home because Israel had put some systems in to look after people like this. But her husband had died. But she had two sons, so she's like, okay, well, they can go out to work and they can look after me. And that's what happened. And so her two sons, they married girls from Moab. One was named Oprah. Not Oprah, Orpah. I may do that again before this story is over. One was named Oprah. I told you. And the other one, okay, it's Orpah. And the other one was named Ruth. The book is called Ruth. Here comes Ruth marrying one of Naomi's sons. And everything's going along fine. Naomi can eat and she's got somewhere to live and it's all great. And then both her sons die. So her husband died and now both her sons died. And now it's not just Naomi, but it's Naomi and her daughters-in-law. Three women. Like, well, now what? What do we do now? I don't know. So Naomi said, well, I've heard that there's food again back in Bethlehem, so I'm going back to Bethlehem. And Orpah and Ruth decided, well, we'll come with you. And so they're walking along, and then Naomi stops, and she goes, you know, it's lovely that you want to come with me. I'm flattered. It's nice, and I'm sure going to miss you guys, but, you know, you're young. You can get married again, so why don't you go back to where you're from and find new husbands? And they go, no, we really like you, Naomi. We're going to come with you. And Naomi's like, what? You think I'm going to have more sons so that you can marry them? I mean, even if that happened right now, you'd have to wait a really long time. No, go home. So Oprah went home. Orpah too. And then Ruth has this famous speech in the Bible where she goes, no, I'm not going. Wherever you're going, I'm going to go. Whatever you do, I'm going to do. Your people are going to be my people. Your God's going to be my God. And may he punish me, be it ever so severely, if I don't stay with you until you die. And Naomi goes, okay, I get it. And so Ruth and Naomi go back to Bethlehem. And when they get there, they still don't have husbands, which means they still don't have jobs, which means they still don't have food to eat. So in Israel, God had told the Israelites, when you harvest the fields, don't take everything. Just leave a little bit as you harvest so that those people who have no food can come behind you and pick up the scraps. And say, Naomi says, go over to Boaz's field. Because actually, Boaz is a relative of ours. And hopefully he won't hurt you or harm you. A lot of the guys would hurt and harm women who were not protected by other men. Men are not always great. And so Ruth goes to Boaz's field and she starts, picking up what people left over. And Boaz, he came to his fields just to say hi and say, may the Lord be with you. And his workers say, and also may the Lord be with you too, Boaz. And Boaz is, who's that girl over there? I'm guessing that Boaz liked how she looked. But she was also a foreigner and from not around there. So he's like, well, who is she? And people are like, well, she came back with Naomi. And he goes, oh, I'm related to Naomi. That's tragic what happened to Naomi. That's just awful. And he said, yeah, she came back and she helps her and looks after her as best she can. And Boaz is like, wow, that's really amazing. Good for her. I tell you what, leave a little bit more so that she can pick up a little bit more. And so when Ruth went home to Naomi, Naomi's like, where did you get all that food? And Ruth is like, man, they just leave quite a bit. And so this went on for a little while. And Naomi says, only go to Boaz's fields. Don't go to anybody else's fields. And Ruth is like, okay, it seems to be working. And then Naomi says something very interesting. She goes, I think it's time to do something about our situation. And Ruth goes, okay, well, what do you have in mind? And Naomi's like, well, I want you to take a bath. Seriously, the Bible says that. I want you to take a bath and put on your best dress and some perfume. And after the feast, go and say hi to Boaz. So Ruth had a bath and put on her best dress and some perfume. And at the end of the meal, when Boaz had eaten, the Bible says had eaten and had drunk quite a bit, decided that he would go over to his a threshing house and take a nap. And Ruth was like, well, what do I do now? Just like, I got all dressed up and the person I've dressed up for has gone off to take a nap. So Ruth follows him and finds Boaz sleeping. And so she makes herself comfortable there and sort of waits for Boaz to wake up, which when he figures out that Ruth is there, wakes up. And he goes, well, what are you doing here? And Ruth is like, well, I'm here because Naomi says that you're out, and they called it kinsman redeemer. You're supposed to take care of us. And Boaz is like, I'd love to take care of you. But there's actually someone who's a closer relative than me. So tomorrow I'll go see him and I'll work it out. And if he wants to marry you, he can marry you. And if he doesn't, I'll marry you. And so go home to Naomi and just wait there. So in the morning, Ruth goes back to Naomi, and Naomi's like, how'd it go? And Ruth's like, well, it started off kind of weird. He fell asleep. But he says he'll do it if somebody else doesn't do it. So Boaz goes to the city gate where a lot of people do business, and he gathers a whole bunch of people, and he says, you're all my witnesses. And they're like, ooh, what are you going to do? He says, well, I'm going to talk to my relative here. And you know Naomi that came back? Oh, yeah. It's really tragic what happened to her. Yeah, really tragic. And well, you're the closest relative. And well, Ruth would be open to being redeemed. And that would help Naomi out. And well, her property's yours if you're going to do it, and hold it for future generations. And the other relative is like, yeah, I could do that. All right, okay. But, says Boaz, if you're going to do that, you have to marry Ruth, because that way it keeps the family name going. And Boaz's relative was like, I think that's Bible speak for like, my current wife probably wouldn't like that very much. And so it's like, well, no, you do it. And Boaz goes, well, okay. All right, as long as you're sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And so Boaz like, okay, you're all a witness, right? You all heard him say that. And they all go, yeah, we heard him say it. And so then Boaz takes off his sandal. I don't have a sandal. I have a hiking boot, very attractive hiking boot sitting in the middle of this right now. Very well lit hiking boot. And he says, okay, you've seen this. You're all witnesses. I am going to marry Ruth. And so he did. It was a story that had a very hard beginning. But it has an amazing ending. Because, well, I'd say that everybody lived happily ever after, but stories don't work out like that, because not everybody lived happily ever after. Elimelech died. His sons died. But it actually worked out okay, because Ruth and Boaz, they got married, and they had a son named Obed. And Obed had a son named Jesse, and Jesse had a son named David. Yeah, King David. We're probably going to do quite a few stories on King David. And David had kids until Jesus came along, who is like the kinsman redeemer, like the one who solves all of our problems. Like when things go really bad for us, Jesus is like, okay, anybody else? No, I'll do it. Ruth is this incredible story of someone being faithful, working hard, doing her best, and being saved by somebody else who could help her more than she could help herself. All right, kids, thank you so much for joining in again this week. I'll be back with another story time real soon. Take care.